Tennessee WildCast is live on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. I'm Jason Harmon, and excited about today's show. I've got Mr. Don King co-hosting with me today.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, Don, like we said last week, he's becoming a regular. I'm just going to call him our official co-host for Tennessee WildCast. How's that?
Until further notice.
Yeah, until further notice. We don't want to replace you too quick. Yeah. Got Mr. Joy Bell with us today. He's the Tennessee state chair for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers organization group.
Yep, that's it. I'm glad to be here, Jason. Appreciate you having me.
We're glad he's here. We're going to talk about public hunting, public access, public fishing, and everything public today.
Stuff we are all about here at the agency, for sure.
Getting outside. So before we jump into all that, we're going to hit some current events. Spring turkey season's rolling around.
Yeah.
We'll be here before you know it.
March 30.
I can't wait. I'd rather turkey hunt than absolutely anything to do.
I remember you saying that now that when we talked a couple of weeks ago, that was one of your favorite things to do. We got some pictures to show today. He's killed a few deer on some public property here, Cheatham WMA actually, and did some squirrel hunting, but it's time to get a turkey.
I'm telling you, I'd rather turkey hunt than anything. And I could do a whole episode. We can do our whole 30 minutes about turkey hunting, as far as I'm concerned, and save BHA for maybe next week or something.
Well, maybe we'll bring you back for a turkey show.
That'd be good.
So anyway, check your hunting guide, page 39. That's it's still good, still current.
Oh, yeah.
As far as 2019 spring turkey hunting. So check that guide. Young Sportsman Hunt starts on March 23rd and 24th. That's a great weekend to get the young guys out there. And then the season fires up for adults on March 30th through May 12th. And you're allowed one bird per day, one bearded bird per day, not to exceed 4 per the season. And there's also a lot of opportunities to hunt turkey on WMAs.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you check those regs. Certain WMAs may have bonus birds, and some of them may be quota hunts. So just check your hunting guide. And I was going to talk about that later, but we'll go ahead and shout out those page numbers 42 and 43. All your WMA and public hunting area information's out there on those pages.
Speaking of guides.
Go ahead.
Hey, we have a new guide. Fishing guide has just come out. Got delivered this past week, and so anyway, be sure and stop by, pick one up. Of course, all the information that is in here is included in the app as well. But it's always nice to have that hard copy you can take with you and read and study up on, and a lot of good information in this fishing guide. And invite everybody to stop by and pick one up wherever you buy your license or buy your bait and tackle, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Pick up that hard copy, or you can visit the app. The new app is out. We've highlighted that a couple of weeks, and we're going to continue to talk about the new app. It's out there and available for download free on the Apple iTunes Store or the Android Store, Google Play, I guess you would say. And it's got a lot of great features. Finding places to hunt, purchase your license, all that kind of stuff. You can get the guides, look at the guides on there. But Joyce said he enjoys that app as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super handy. Carry it around in your pocket. Like you said, keep your licenses in there. And one thing I really like about it, I can go in there and just search for a WMA, and I don't have to flip through the whole, physical hunting guide to find the WMA I want to find. And I can just click on it, click the specific regulations for that WMA, and it's right there and ready to go. And it was really handy for me applying for quota hunts, and especially the turkey season, these turkey quota hunts that we've had. A few of them were out in East Tennessee. It's just country I'm not familiar with, so I didn't know anything about them, hadn't heard of several of them, so it was just super easy to find information about them.
And it can get a little complicated when you're looking at public lands like the WMAs. You're sometimes there's specific things they have to manage for, and the land managers there do an awesome job taking care of those properties, and it sometimes it gets kind of personal because they know what their property, their surroundings, and all need in order to manage it properly for the best take for hunters and all. So So that is good to be able to go to that app and just search what you need, as opposed to going through the charts, and the guide can be a little.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. Talking about the managers, their contact information is in there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's been a few times I've called those guys, and just a lot of them will tell you almost anything. I mean, aside from here's a GPS coordinate where a dude killed a deer, last year. But it's just super handy information that they have that you can't find anywhere else.
Those
And
guys know that property
they
well.
know it.
Oh, man, yeah.
On some occasions, they live there, and it's just the best information you can have, aside from somebody aside from your buddy going out there.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I love it.
One other thing before we get into the meat of the topics today, I wanted to hit the fishing guy or the boating courses. The boating courses are out there online, tnwildlife.org. Just go to the homepage, click boating at the top of the page. I'm going to show you how to do that if you're watching. Hey, thanks for watching on Facebook, by the way, if you're watching out there. And also thanks for watching on YouTube, TWRA TV, all those fun places. And also thanks for listening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We love our radio stations.
Our radio stations. We appreciate our radio partners for carrying the show, and appreciate from week to week our listeners tuning in. So thank you, and support the folks that are sponsoring these segments on the various stations too. It's great that the local radio stations can go out and find sponsors that make sense, that are supporting our mission, and we like for them, the sportsmen, to turn around and help support them as well.
Help them out as well, yep. So if you want to look for boating education information, go to tnwildlife.org, click the boating tab at the top. Under boating education in Tennessee, you can click the exam locations button right there. It'll pop up another page. You'll have some FAQ, kind of the how-to kind of questions here. But then under that, you've got your West Tennessee, your Middle Tennessee, your Cumberland Plateau, and your East Tennessee boating courses that are happening. Make sure you get that permit, Type 600.
Type 600, it's about $10, and anybody born after January 1st, 1989 needs that certification in order to operate a powered boat on Tennessee waters.
Okay, there you heard it. So, I've seen a lot of these courses being popped up on the website here lately. A lot of classes are opening up. It's going to be time to get on the water before too long.
Yeah.
So, make sure you check that out. All right, well, let's meet Mr. Joey Bell. He's like we said earlier, he's with the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and he's going to tell us about that organization. But first, let's just learn a little bit about Joey. How'd you get introduced to the outdoors? What got you into hunting and fishing and all that good stuff?
So I grew up on a farm in Hickman County, which is about an hour southwest of Nashville here. My father was a full-time farmer. My mother worked at the Levi's plant in town, and I got introduced to hunting through my father, like most everybody. And I spent, oddly enough, I'm a part of a public lands advocacy group now, but I did 99.9% of my hunting on private land growing up. And it was I just never had a second thought about public land hunting. But I grew up deer hunting and turkey hunting, squirrel hunting, and everything else. And probably the 0.1% hunting that I did on public ground was on the Duck River, floating for ducks. But that's how I got introduced to the outdoors. Did a lot of fishing and stuff on Duck River as well. And went to college, kind of moved away for 4 or 5 years, and came back, and it kind of just rekindled my passion for the outdoors because I had so much access to familiar ground.
Right.
I could go back to my farm and hunt all the time that I wanted to. And it wasn't long after I moved back that I heard about Backcountry Hunters and Anglers through a podcast I was listening to. It was the Meat Eater podcast with Stephen Ranella. And they were just kind of talking about it and talking about what they stood for, and I just kind of clicked. I was like, man, I really enjoy this. I had always been a part of NWTF and most recently the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And the difference between those guys and BHA is NWTF is focused on wild turkeys, Rocky Mountain elk.
Yeah.
You got Ducks Unlimited. You got all these species-specific conservation organizations that have done fantastic work for decades.
Right.
BHA is different in that it's not species specific. It focuses mostly on the entire ecosystem, and that ecosystem being some of the most pristine being found on public lands. So it was about, and I think in the mid-2000s there were some guys gathered around a campfire, which, a lot of great ideas are, kind of conjured up around there. And they just had this idea. There's like, we don't really have an organization focused on hunting and fishing access on public lands. So they started BHA, and well over a decade later, we've got over 30,000 members now, I think, and we're shooting for 50,000.
Wow.
And so I think we're the fastest growing conservation organization in the country. So we've got, I think, let me see my notes here, 27 U.S. chapters and growing. And then we also have 2 Canadian chapters in Alberta and British Columbia. So it's growing and growing. We have our own Southeast chapter, which encompasses Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And in the future, some of those states might break off and form their own chapters as our membership grows. We are a nonprofit. All of our funding comes from grants, events that we put on for fundraising, membership drives, donations from various companies or members, and also sponsorships with companies in the outdoor community. Most of that funding goes toward things like, a big thing in the West is OHV signage, where it's illegal to have OHV vehicles out on a public property. A lot of that funding goes to things like that. Also, education with like Louisiana water access. I'm going to focus now on a couple things in the Southeast.
Sure.
Most of the issues we have in the Southeast are different from the public issues that they have out West. Out West you have these big, vast areas of public land, which can easily be, maybe either the federal lands can be transferred to the state, and they're at risk of being sold off at that point.
Grazing rights and all those kinds of things come into play then, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of land issues out there. Most of our issues in the Southeast focus around water access issues because like I said, we don't have the vast expanses of huge public lands that they do. So we've been dealing a lot with Louisiana access issues, like in the bayous and in the saltwater access. There have been some oil companies that have came in there, bought property, and have basically blocked off passable waterways, and they think that's theirs when it's really not. There's nothing separating their waterway from the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
So we've been dealing with issues there. We also put funding towards CWD education, and a couple of our guys in Mississippi are kind of getting the ball rolling there for the Southeast, and I hope to kind of start that in Tennessee as well. We've also got an issue in Mississippi with the Pearl River. They're wanting to dam that river, and it'll affect the ecosystem below and above that dam. And a lot of other different things. We've here kind of local. We've got a guy down in Chattanooga working with the National Forest there at Cherokee and a couple of local TWR agents to do some National Forest cleanups and things like that. So we stay busy, and I think public land issues. It's always going to be. They're always going to be there, and we're the voice to help combat some of those issues.
Well, that's good.
So y'all are doing events and things here in Middle Tennessee and Tennessee in general, just to raise funds for all that kind of stuff, and I guess it goes to the national efforts, right?
Yeah. The chapter gets a portion of those funds that we raise, and that helps us put on events here locally, and then another portion of that goes towards the national headquarters. So
yeah.
Describe to me what the typical event would be like if I came to one.
Yeah, so we have a lot of things called the most simple ones are called pint nights, and that's just where we just have a gathering of like-minded individuals, say here in Nashville, and just come and hang out, and we have merchandise to sell, and we just swap hunting and fishing stories and lies and everything else, and a couple of the very generous individuals share a waypoint or two, where they've been and had success, and it's just a general hangout session, and that's more to just gain interest and maybe get another membership or two here or there. That's very simple. We also have what we call storytelling events, which is where we have some quote unquote well-known people in the industry or in our region just come and kind of speak and tell their stories from public land, adventures of past. Damon Bungard is one. He's a rep for Jackson Kayak and Orion Coolers. He lives in Tennessee, so he's been to a couple of events. We also have Kevin Murphy, who has came to a couple of events from Meat Eater. If you've ever watched that show, he's the the world's greatest small game hunter, and so he always draws a crowd because he's a super interesting individual. And then we've got a couple other guys, even our own board members for the Southeast. They come and they've been out west and they've had a lot of experience in the backcountry or just in doing anything, and they have a lot of stories to share. So we'll get anybody that has a story at some of those.
Neat.
So
Cool. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'll have to try to come out to one of those sometime.
yeah.
Let's chat a little bit about some public lands around here in Middle Tennessee, some that you've maybe hunted on, some of your success stories, and some of the false things you might hear, overcrowding, quality, and that kind of thing. I mean, talking to you, we can tell you really love to hunt, love to be on these public properties, and have had some success, and we'll show some photos of that. But talk to us about what you've seen on our public lands here in Tennessee and how you've enjoyed them, or some things you've faced.
Well, I think, some of the myths are, even I heard these myths and I believed them growing up because, like I said earlier, I spent most of my time on private land. So
You didn't have to worry about it too much.
I didn't have to worry about it.
You had a place to go.
I was the same way.
I drove by public land. I drove by the MTSU WMA in Hickman County to go to my hunting spot. Drove right by it and saw all those trucks sitting there, and I was like, well, see ya. I'm gonna go sit in my deer stand all alone on my 300 acres. I didn't have to worry about it. But when I moved back to Tennessee, when I moved away after college, and I started hunting a little more on public land, I was like, you know what, this isn't bad. I don't know why people are scared to come out here. Yeah, you'll see a couple trucks here and there, but once you get your boots on and you get down in some of these places deep enough, you almost have the place to yourself.
Oh yeah.
And I may be giving away a few secrets, but if you get in deep enough, like I said, you do have some places to yourself. And I killed my first public land buck on Cheatham WMA this past year. And
Is that it?
that sure is it. It was,
Oh man.
it was 8-point, and I had never really done much public land deer hunting. But I kind of studied some topo maps, and I got some information from the land manager there, and kind of putting a couple things together, studying a lot of satellite imagery maps. I use OnX maps a lot, and so that really helped me out. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of picked out some terrain features, and I didn't really scout this area much. I'd been out there turkey hunting the past spring, and so I didn't have a real good memory of what everything looked like, but I just basically, here's a main road that goes through the property. I can get out at least a mile on whatever side and pick out a couple of terrain points and just try my luck. And so on the second day, I set up in just a little sharp saddle a mile or so off the road on this ridge, and I had deer activity all morning.
Oh, man.
I sat on the ground. I actually took my turkey hunting chair, and I just set it on the ground, and I got there a couple hours before daylight, and I could hear deer running around all over the place. And I was like, man, this is awesome. It was the most fun deer hunt I'd ever been on. And once it got daylight, I kind of had to switch positions because I couldn't see at 3 o'clock in the morning where I was.
Yeah.
And so I switched positions and got a little closer or got in the position where I needed to be to get a better shot. And I had a couple bucks running does by me, and I couldn't get them to stop for absolutely anything. I was hollering at them, and they didn't pay me no mind because they had their mind on other things.
Other things, yeah.
But about 8:30, kind of just heard some just rustling through the leaves, and I kind of just eased over my left shoulder and looked, and this 8-point just feeding on acorns like through the woods, and I put a bullet right through his lungs, and he dropped right there. And that's when the real work began. So
it's kind of cool. You packed it out here.
Being a mile or so away from the truck, I didn't want to carry a game cart or one of those things. I didn't want to have to drag. I wasn't going to drag that thing out for sure. So I had learned through BHA and some members that had been out west about just packing the animal out. I was like, well, that's a lot better than dragging it and killing myself.
Oh man, yeah.
So I quartered him out and dressed him there in the field. And I had some game bags, and I got a pack from. I'll do a shameless plug for LifeView Outdoors. They give 10% off for BHA members here in Nashville. So
awesome!
I got my pack from there, and I was able to haul him out. And basically, all I had to do when I got him home was just quarter up the meat and put it in the freezer. And I did a lot of the work out in the field.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it made for a really good story. And he was a fat little deer, but I think he weighed about 800 pounds by the time I got back to the truck.
That's funny. That's great. That's great. So yeah, public hunting on public lands can be fun. I mean, it's not overcrowded most of the time, and the quality's there. Like you said, Cheatham showing some great deer out there this year. Oak Ridge is doing work to improve their deer out there. President's Island, I was going to mention this later, but President's Island out in West Tennessee, growing some big deer.
Yeah, I've always heard President's Island was just a destination for Tennessee deer hunters.
Place to be, yeah. So I mean, there's opportunities all across the state to harvest a big deer, and not only deer, but the squirrel hunting and the rabbit hunting and the turkey hunting. And then like Kiker Bottoms, I was going to mention this. Kiker Bottoms has some great quail habitat. They're doing great work out there for quail.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities all across the state to just to hunt any type of species. And then fishing opportunities as well. A lot of these WMAs, like you said, are landlocked by water and water access, and a lot of the water right there is great for fishing.
Yeah. I did a little bit of turkey hunting with the canoe this past spring on down at Yanali WMA, and there was a couple of spots there that were landlocked with private land, and the only access was from the river. So just launch a canoe, float down, and you hunt an area. And I didn't see one footprint or anything while I was there. It was great, and but you just don't think about that unless you can get on the TWRA app,
right,
and you can find some of those properties. And then I couple that with my OnX maps, which shows private property boundaries and everything like that. So if you don't have a way to access the property from the water, you can at least knock on a door or two and get access, maybe just walk through.
Yeah.
So,
and I've had that happen to me before. Just ask for permission. A lot of these farmers, a lot of these landowners don't mind trying to get to a little fishing spot, and they were fine with it,
Something about a face-to-face, too. They can kind of size you up and say, I think I could trust you, You know what I mean? That makes a big difference, I think.
One thing I wanted to hit on, too, is we have over 100 WMAs combined, and on page, I think it's page 42 and 43, I mentioned this earlier, but you can go check that out in the hunting guide. All the regulations, the differences between public hunting areas and WMAs is all right there on page 42, and that's where all the listings start. But they range from 53 acres to 625,000 acres. So
wow.
There's some big pieces of property out there.
Like you said, you can get yourself lost out there.
Oh, you
literally.
sure can.
So it's good to have those maps. Good to check those maps and mark your GPS coordinates and get you a GPS if you have to, and it can be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I noticed, Jason, you had a note down here to ask Joey about the farm bill and if it comes into play in his endeavors with BHA.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. The farm bill is something that affects everybody, especially if you're involved with the outdoors or conservation of any kind.
Right. What
the farm bill does is it provides funding for public access on private ground. It also provides habitat management on public ground. It funds our CRP programs, which a lot of people in the state might be familiar with. I was trying to I was in the process of getting my farm in the CRP program, so that all comes from the farm bill, and also a forest restoration. So all kinds of habitat restoration and maintenance comes from the farm bill, and that affects everybody. Even if you're a private landowner, if you want to go the CRP route and help out there, or if you're just a public land user and just do all your recreating on public lands,
right?
You can thank the farm bill from that. And another program I have here in my notes is another big deal for us is LWCF, the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It takes taxes from the oil industry and it funds conservation projects, and that's zero money out of any taxpayer's pocket, and it's coming straight from the oil industry, and we're putting it to good use. So, and another thing I found out that was pretty cool, almost every county in the United States has a LWCF funded project in it. And I looked back, and even my old Hickman County stomping grounds, it has a LWCF project from back when, but I just thought that was cool. Almost every county in the country has a LWCF project.
Yeah.
It also it funds some land acquisition projects. Maybe a piece of property that's not public before. It can be bought and turned into public ground that's maybe bordering a larger WMA or a larger, other public piece. And it also provides funding for easements for access to public grounds. So like we were talking about earlier, knocking on the door and getting access to a public piece of property through somebody else's property, an LWCF project could come along and fund access to that public
Sure.
property through the private property.
Sure.
And the landowner would get a cut. Like, hey, if you just let us walk through your backyard or something like that to get on here, here's your check.
Yeah.
So that's something that LWCF comes from. And another couple of programs that some people may not know about, and I was surprised that very few people knew about, was just Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson. And that's kind of another few things that BHA they use our funds to educate people. Growing up, I'd never heard of Pittman Robertson. I'd never heard of Dingle Johnson or LWCF or any of these other things. So one of the things we just try to educate people on are the programs that are there to benefit people of the outdoors and all of us.
Right.
So, the Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson, as we know, it's sitting in this room. It takes taxes from firearm and outdoor equipment sales and fishing equipment and marine equipment, and it puts it into a fund and it gets doled out to the states to for habitat conservation projects.
The important part of that is that that apportionment is based on how many hunters and anglers we have in our state. And the only way to tell are the folks who buy licenses. So it's so important, even for folks who don't call themselves a hunter or a fisherman, would if they can buy an 01 license, that just is a huge contribution to these efforts you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get the federal dollars coming back in, so it's like you triple your money. That license that costs $34 is a great, we always say, great investment in Tennessee's wildlife future, and
absolutely
helps us acquire a lot of those other funds that are so important.
Yep. Well, Joe, it's been fun, and we forgot to show this picture. Let's show this.
Oh, man.
You get out west every now and again.
Oh,
real quick, another thing that BHA opened me up to was hunting out west and how easy it was to go out west. So we might could do another episode on that later, because I got a Miriam's turkey hunt planned in April, and I just got drawn for a cow elk tag yesterday in Wyoming. So I got a couple western hunts planned. But
maybe we could do a remote show in Wyoming.
Absolutely.
I think that would be good.
Come on out.
Todd, pack it up.
Yeah. Well, and here's some links. Let's make sure we show these. Website, backcountryhunters.org. The Southeast chapter links are there. And you can also get to those on that main site. Their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages, they're all there. But go check those out and give BHA a little love, and go check them out and maybe become a member and help preserve public fishing and hunting opportunities.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If real quick, if you sign up for membership on BHA, use the promo code MeatEater, you'll get a free public landowner T-shirt, which is the same cost of the T-shirt and the membership. So
all right.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
Can't beat that. Yeah, win-win. Hey, Joey, thank you. Don, thank you.
You bet.
And we'll see y'all next time on Tennessee WildCast.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.